How y'all doing? This is Mongo Slade, and today we're going to be talking a lot about Val Venis and his Twitter tirade. So, for those of you who don't know, Sean Morley, aka Val Venis, is a libertarian politically, and he has been going on an absolute tirade on Twitter for the last 2 days, calling The Rock a communist, and calling Mick Foley a communist, and Sami Zayn and Dave Batista. I have not been following this that closely. But what caught my attention was he said that he wants Arizona to secede from the Union, which I thought was dope. And so we're going to talk about this. Now, me and Val Venis have different political opinions. He's a libertarian and so am I, but he's also an anarchist, which is a different arm of libertarianism. We may get into that later, but I'm just going to go through his timeline and see some of the crazy stuff that he's been posting, and anything that I see that is interesting, I will read. So, obviously, somebody just asked him about the roads. God damn it. Why do people keep asking about these goddamn roads? So he says, from 2 days ago, I'm going to say this once and you will find this tweet again soon. I want freedom. I want to taste freedom. I want to smell freedom. I want to create value for my fellow human beings in freedom. And most importantly, I want my children to live in freedom with liberty. And some guy says, no, you don't. You don't want any of that. You're supposing a dictator wannabe who attempted to rile up his base in an attempted coup. And Val Venis responded, what facts are you relying on that helped you conclude I support any Trump policies? Or do you normally just blurt shit out that you know nothing about? And then he says, my position is simple. Abolish government. Taxation is theft. Abortion is murder. Government is an organized crime syndicate. Okay, so here's where the anarchist position is. It's the atheism of political commentary. Anarchism is essentially no government. It doesn't mean no rules. It means no rulers. That is how they always put it. The problem with anarchism is it makes a great argument against government. It just doesn't make a great argument for anarchism. You know what I'm saying? So, anarchists are anti-government. And I think most people are anti-government, except the statists, the big government communists and those kinds of people. Most people are anti-government. Most people are anti-taxes. Most of this stuff I actually agree with. I agree that abortion is murder. I agree that government is mostly an organized crime syndicate. And I agree that taxation is theft. But I don't agree with abolishing the government. Even Ayn Rand, who was one of the most, produced this the concept of, oh God, it's on the tip of my tongue and I'm probably going to not remember it. Egoism, which, she codified in her fictional works and in some non-fictional work. So I've read the Virtue of Selfishness, which is an Ayn Rand book. It's very interesting. Her mentality is very interesting, and it's actually, but she rejects anarchism because she believes that government is necessary to protect certain rights, and I do believe that you do need to protect certain rights, and that anarchism doesn't really do a good job of protecting rights. It also doesn't do a good job of protecting your family from outside invaders. Just because you want to leave everybody else alone doesn't mean everybody wants to leave you alone. And that's the number one problem that you're going to have with anarchism is, for starters, it doesn't work in large groups, so you have to be a small group. And then once you have a small group, all it takes is for a larger group to show up, and then you can get run over. But here he goes again. I pray to my Lord Jesus Christ that my foe, Donald Trump, will exercise his statist quote-unquote authority to arrest Joe Biden, Barack Obama, and other comrade criminals and stop the communist attack on America. My fight is for my freedom in my lifetime or my kids' lifetime. Abolish the government. Okay. He says, having an opinion is far... This is from 2 days ago, by the way. So I didn't go back far. So he's been going at it for a long time. Having an opinion is far different than empowering criminals to stick their stupid fucking hands deeper into my paycheck, forcing human beings to wear a communist muzzle, encouraging the murder of millions of unborn babies, forcing humans to get poison shot into their arm, forcing private sector businesses to close is not a motherfucking opinion. It's a crime against humanity. Wake up, dude. So, a lot of this is true. A lot of this is entirely true. This is so I don't believe in mandatory mask wearing. I definitely don't believe in shutdowns. I don't think that there's anything that can that you can say that's going to make any sense as far as why people have to wear masks and stay shut down. I mean, that just pretends like the world, you can just press pause on the world, right? Like, I remember we was shut down in the United States. I was shut down in Detroit for a little while. I didn't even really know what day it was. Like, I really didn't know what the date was because I was stuck in the house for so long. Like, that's insane. Like, I had to check to see what day it was. It was nonsense when you live. So here he goes on The Rock. He says, or The Rock, Foley, and Sami Zayn, etc. He says, if any of you communist sympathizing slugs, The Rock, Mick Foley, Sami Zayn, or Batista, want to explain your sympathy and support for an ideology that witnessed 260 million innocent humans murdered by their own governments in the 20th century alone, I'm all ears. So he's talking about communism, which of course starved millions of people, and then all of the people who've been shot and sentenced to starve to death in gulags, etc. Communism is fucking evil. I mean, it is, you know. I think it's a stretch to call The Rock a communist. I think it's a stretch to call Batista a communist. I think Mick Foley is just so nice that obviously being nice is attributed to socialism because people think socialism is nice because they don't know what it is. And Sami Zayn is Canadian, which means that to him socialism is normal. You know, that's just how bad Canada is. You know, Canada Europe is the same way, where they just think that, oh, I was born into a world where I have universal health care and I have, you know, we don't have guns. This is normal. What's wrong with the United States? What's wrong with you guys in America? It's like, yeah, we like freedom, bitch. That's what's wrong with us. And so I don't know. I don't know if it's fair to call these guys communists. I mean, The Rock is rich as fuck. He ain't no communist. he might be a champagne socialist. He ain't no goddamn communist. I can tell you that. If he was a communist, he wouldn't be so goddamn rich. So here he goes again. Hey, freedom-loving humans, do your part to encourage The Rock to become an American again. Cancel Rock's movies and unfollow his Twitter until he publicly takes back his support for Joe Biden and his communist handlers. Make The Rock American again. So, obviously, I did a video when I talked about The Rock, who was threw his weight behind Joe Biden. And I don't believe The Rock is a communist. I think it's just Hollywood. In Hollywood, this is what you do. You side with the left when you're in Hollywood. Otherwise, you probably just won't get work. You know, you can get run out of the industry. That's just kind of how it is. The arts in general are very, very leftist. The creative fields are very, very leftist. Now, is that due to discrimination and running people who vote differently out? That could possibly be it. It also could be that it's dominated in two spots. It's dominated in New York and Los Angeles. You know, and I've said before that New York and Los Angeles is basically bolt their beliefs into your home, into your children's heads through their media. All of the movies and stuff that are set in New York or Los Angeles have New York and Los Angeles values. Sometimes even the ones set in other places have New York and Los Angeles values. You know, so that's just kind of how it is. And what I mean by their values, I mean leftist, liberal values of you know, banning guns, and guns are evil, and, you know, giving away everything that you own, the incredible high rates of taxes. You know, teachers are heroes. Public school teachers are heroes, not just teachers in general, but public school teachers are heroes. You know, all of that big government bullshit. I don't know if The Rock is I don't know about The Rock being a communist though. Like, I'm really tripping on him calling The Rock a communist. He says, dead American soldiers fought with bullets and bombs against communism. The Rock, Mick Foley, Sami Zayn, and Dave Batista spit in the face of these dead soldiers and support communism coming to America without one single shot fired. So somebody responded, this isn't communism. This is the end result of free market capitalism. The Republicans' own ideology and refusal to do anything to rein in big tech and every other multinational corporation led to this moment. We are in uncharted waters now. Sean Morley responded, you have cronyism confused with capitalism. Huge difference. There are no quote-unquote corporations in a true free market. So what he means by this is that corporations are legal fictions. They are, you know, God, I have to go through the whole concept. Look, okay, so what he's talking, cronyism is essentially buddying up to the government. It's essentially fascism. And when the government and private industries are working together, that is essentially what's called, that is cronyism, as being a crony. But to the extreme is fascism. So we do have a crony system. I talked before about, in my previous video, about the guy who got banned from Twitter. That when you allow Wall Street to write their own regulations, they just limit competition. That's what they do. And because they can limit competition, they just become cronies of the government. They give the government money, and then the government goes and writes favorable laws for them, like Big Pharma, who can't be sued if something happens to you due to this virus vaccine, right? The Big Pharma is protected by the government. There's other industries that are protected by the government. There are also industries that get contracts from the government, like big tech. I said this before too, that big tech, Apple, Google, Facebook, all of these organizations, they have contracts with the federal government, especially with the federal government. And those contracts could be cut, but people will not do it because they are cronies. And you get cronies because, there's lobbyism, and when lobbyists started saying, oh, lobbying is free speech, giving money to people, to government, it's not quid pro quo, it's free speech, then that's kind of part of the problem. So he says no corporations in a true free market basically means that you would not be able to have a Walmart because you wouldn't be able to own that much land. You wouldn't be able to own and control that much land and in a true free market, because there wouldn't be no government to make sure that you can protect your factories and everything. You basically have to do it off of, and that's another reason why anarchism doesn't work, is that you kind of have to agree with everybody that this is your plot of land and that they won't take it from you. Otherwise, people would just take it from you. I mean, why not? So he continues. It's time to fight back against the insane cancel culture. Communist sympathizers like The Rock, Mick Foley, Sami, Zayn, and Batista support canceling America. He says, cancel communism, cancel The Rock's movies, cancel Mick's books, cancel CNN, cancel Fox News, cancel government, cancel banks. Oh, Lord. When communists print a nation's currency, communists enslave that nation. America is under attack. Communism is here in America, and it seeks to destroy your minds and takes away your freedoms and liberties. The Rock, Mick Foley, Sami Zayn, Dave Batista all support communism. Quote, then he continues, public education destroyed the mind of Mick Foley. It's sad to see communism attacking America in broad daylight while clueless humans like Mick Foley call America a democracy. America was never a democracy. America is a republic, a massive difference. He posted a quote from Mick Foley, who he says, I do think this is a matter of between right and wrong. Foley tells People. I think that democracy is at stake. I do hate this because the United States was never meant to be a democracy. Democracy is one man, one vote. Everybody, majority rule. It was always meant to be a republic. Only certain people were supposed to vote. Over the years, there have been various laws that have eroded that. And people have tried to erode that concept from the beginning. There was, to prevent everybody from voting, there was, laws banning women from voting. Then there was the poll tax. Then there was other type of poll tests where you had to be able to read in order to vote. Since all that stuff got taken away, we've essentially become a direct democracy. And direct democracy is favorable large numbers. Large numbers don't need to be intelligent. They don't need to be smart. They don't even need to be, they don't need to be intellectually right. They don't even need to be right at all. Most of the time, you can just sway them with emotions or make promises, and this is what you get. What you get is the system that we have now. We used to have senators. Like senators are supposed to represent their state, right? The House represents the people, quote unquote. The Senate represents the state. How that works is you vote directly for your House of Representatives. Your state votes for your senators. That's how it's supposed to be. Over the years, that of course has changed. Now senators are running directly, just like members of the House. And it's been an absolute disaster because now senators don't even represent their states anymore. They are quote unquote representing the people. It is a huge mistake to change from democracy to a republic. Democracy is mob rule. Mob rule does not factor in a lot of stuff, like who owns land where. You might see Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez talked about land shouldn't vote, people vote, but people own land. So like when you talk about, well, Wyoming has 500,000 people in it or something like that. Well, there is, a spot in California that has more than that. Why should Wyoming have the same voice as California? It's like, well, why should Wyoming want to be in a country if they don't have a vote? If the 500,000 people who stay in Wyoming doesn't get to run Wyoming, but California gets to run Wyoming, then why should Wyoming be in the country? They should want to succeed, right? It's like if we are, it's like the old thing people say about democracy is it's two wolves and a sheep voting for what's for dinner. That exactly is the exact case, and you see that in American and you see it in international politics as well. You'll see people get riled up and say we need to eat the rich or raise taxes on the wealthy because there's more poor people than there are wealthy people. So you're going to say raise the taxes on the wealthy and don't know what that means. But since most people aren't wealthy, they just kind of agree, right? Like, okay, fine, it's not my taxes, not knowing that they're going to pay for it in the back end through either increased costs as far as goods and services are concerned, or manufacturing jobs, stuff like that will leave. And that's exactly what happened. You kept increasing taxes, you kept increasing the minimum wage, kept increasing the power in unions, and people started to leave. Because again, when it comes to direct democracy, people don't have to think. They just have to say, well, it doesn't affect me. And if you say anything about it, it's, well, you're protecting the multinational corporations and you're protecting big business and you're protecting all these people. And I'm like, individual rights are individual rights. I don't care how much money somebody has. You should have the same rights as Jeff Bezos. Now Jeff Bezos can get more rights by, fiddle-faddling with the government, being a crony, which he of course can do. But in a system that wouldn't allow him to do that, he wouldn't be able to do that. And Amazon wouldn't be as big as it is if there was competition. But the reason why you can't have competition is because of the regulations. It's very difficult for somebody to build a competitive system to Amazon or Walmart or Twitter or Facebook or any of this type of stuff. It's very difficult to build competition due to regulations. I'm not going to get into the weeds about that stuff though. So he's talking about communism is destroying America city by city, and he's not entirely wrong. He's just saying communism, but communism is a pretty serious thing. I'm not going to go and say communism, but the socialist policies that are in big cities like Detroit, like Chicago, like New York, like in San Francisco, like in Seattle, like in Austin, Texas, like in Atlanta, and certain parts of Tennessee, yeah, they are destructive. Baltimore, yeah. And what I mean by socialism, what I mean by that is wealth redistribution. It is promising the masses something from the small number of people. When you start saying that a small number of people have to fund the education system, a small number of people have to fund the bus system, have to fund the trains, have to fund the roads, they have to fund everything. It's like when you ask a small number of people to take care of the masses, you're basically saying everybody's going to end up being broke, because the only people who can do that are people who have billions and billions of dollars. And that's the thing people need to think about, is when you're saying that you want to eat the rich, it's like, no, you don't. You don't really, because how else are you going to pay for all the shit that you want? Especially if you're a city dweller. How else do you want to have a bus system or a transit system? Who's going to pay for it? All of these broke motherfuckers in the city? Or are you going to be looking at all these billionaires who own businesses in your town to pay for it, because they're going to have to pay for it through taxes? So you don't really want to eat the rich. You just want to talk shit. Let's see what else we can find. He's been going on and on and on. It's just been so much. It's been so much, man. He says, we all want roads, but if your only solution to fund those roads is to set up an extortion racket, you've gone too far, too simple to represent yourself, let alone an entire community, and really should just consider shutting your pie hole. He says, there's no such thing as taxes. What you delusionally call taxes is in fact one or more humans using any one or combination of intimidation, coercion, and force in order to compel a desired result from another. That is factually the crime of extortion, you imbecile. He is correct. If you use coercion or intimidation to get what you want, that's basically what the mob does. And the government can do it, and it's perfectly legal. I am 100% on the whole taxation and theft idea. You can definitely help millions of people in the United States just by doing something simple, one simple thing, abolishing the income tax. If you abolish the income tax, it'll change the lives of a lot of people. Like it really would. You wouldn't need to make a lot of money if you abolish the income tax. Then people would have to, you would have to actually see where your money goes. Because if you abolish the income tax and you work for $15 an hour, you would get at the end of the week 15 times 40, right? That's what you would get, and that would be your paycheck. And then you could go from there and figure out how much of that money you're going to spend, how much you're going to invest, how much you're going to have, et cetera, et cetera. But in our current system, you work for $15 an hour, you really only take home like 13, which is bullshit. Because it's a lie that you work for $15 an hour. Because when you look at it, they take money out of it, and they take the fucking money before you even get it. So it's a different thing between paying taxes now than how it used to be. Like in the old days, somebody used to come around with like a collection plate, and you had to put your taxes in it. Like they come out with a basket, and you have to drop your 2 coins or whatever in it. And that's how you know somebody's going to take your money. They had to physically take it from you. Now they swipe it off of your goddamn paycheck before you even get it. That's how union dues are paid too. Notice how those types of things, you don't pay them like bills, right? Like when you have to pay the light bill, the light company sends you a bill. You have to look back and read it like, what the fuck? My power went out for 2 days last week, but I'm getting paid. I have to pay full price for this whole thing. People would do the same thing if you had to pay taxes the same way. If you had to get a bill to pay the Department of Education, and you see like, wait a minute, my son can barely fucking read. Why am I paying $300, $400 in public education? You know, what if the schools have been closed down for 6 months? Why am I paying for this? It's like, you wouldn't do it. So they take it before you can look at it and tell. So it really is some bullshit. He went on and on about Joe Biden and Hunter Biden. I'm not going to go into that. I don't care about that shit at all. All of that stuff about Trump is dead as far as I'm concerned. You know, it's over. He says he's been blocked by Facebook for 30 days. Communists run the corporations, silencing any and all voices of dissent. It's sick and very scary event happening right now. I don't believe the people who run the corporations are communists. What I believe are the people who are running the corporations basically like the money of communists. And they think that they can take communist money without becoming communists themselves. And that's essentially what the NBA is trying to do, right? Like anybody who does business in China is up to no good as far as I'm concerned. And that's kind of what I've been kind of keeping my eye on WWE and their involvement in China. Because once you start taking that Chinese money, man, it's like that's really what started poisoning Hollywood. When they started making movies specifically not to offend the Chinese, like they would browbeat us in the United States about not having black representation in the movies and stuff like that. But then when they send movies to China, they would take the black people out of them. Like, well, out of the not out the movie, but out of the marketing. For instance, Black Panther or something like that, because they don't like black people in China, they would make sure he's either in his suit so his face can't be seen. When they did Star Wars and they had the black dude, I forget what his name is. I don't care because I don't care about Star Wars. But when they had him on the cover of the movie in the United States, he wasn't on the cover of the movie in China because they were playing to the biases of the Chinese audience. But they were browbeating the Americans about how the Americans are racist and everything, but they didn't care that China was racist. That's like they claim that America is so terrible, the United States is so terrible, and yet they are 100% okay with the kind of crap China does. Like Disney made Mulan right in front of the fucking Uyghur camps, where the Chinese government kept the Uyghur Muslims in concentration camps, and Disney was perfectly fine with that. but we were getting lectured about illegal immigration in the United States. It's absolute bullshit. But he went on and on about this stuff, man. And this is a lot. And it seems like a lot of it is basically him saying that Trump won and Hunter Biden should go to prison because he's a pedophile. The Rock is The Rock and Batista and Sami Zayn and Mick Foley are communists. And it's getting repetitive, if we're being honest. Again, I don't believe that The Rock is a communist. I believe that The Rock and Batista, for instance, they're just Hollywood guys. And they think their view in their bubble, this is a nice thing to do because you have to support diversity and all that stuff. And, you know, I guess Sami Zayn is Canadian. So he's got that whole thing. Well, the crazy thing is Sean Morley is also Canadian. So I shouldn't say that. But you talk about somebody who has bought into the socialist concept in Canada that, you know, everybody should have universal health care paid for by somebody else. It's like, no. But the idea that this is, that these guys are communists is an extreme position. That is extreme. But I'm not surprised, you know. For an anarchist, a lot of this stuff is communism, you know, because it's basically a state takeover. But I am deeply concerned about the concept of, you know, all these people who want deep regulations, because when you say what is socialism, right? People say you don't even know what socialism is. How dare you say that? I would say, well, socialism and communism are essentially, you know, it's a thin line between the two of them. In socialism, it says about seizing the means of production, right? It is the people own the factories, the people own this, the people own that, and we don't know what that means because the people is a legal fiction. Right? It's bullshit. So don't know what that means. Some people will say the same thing in a communist country. The people own the factories. The people own the farms. Nobody owns anything. In socialism, people can't own. There is private property. In communism, there is not. Right? Because, you know, private property leads to inequality, and inequality is what caused communism in the first place. And the idea that people should be equal also causes communism. People should not be equal because there are no two people who are the same, you know, and there are no two human beings that have ever been born that are exactly the same. Even if they are identical twins, they still have different likes and dislikes, still have different fingerprints. They will make different decisions. And to take it to the next level, Thomas Sowell will even tell you that one man, is not even equal to himself on different days. That if you hadn't, so to give you an example of that, you would have to take somebody like, take the world's fastest man, right? What was the guy's name? Oh shit. Oh, what the fuck is his name? I think he's Jamaican or Brazilian or something. What was his name? Never mind what his name is. But why doesn't he run you know, the same number every time, right? Why, when he runs in the morning, he scores this number, but then he runs again later, he scores a different number? Like, did he become less of himself later in the day, or did he become more of himself later in the day? It's like, no, you just perform differently at different times and at different days. So you're not even equal to yourself, because how you perform at 6 a.m. and how you perform at 6 p.m. are going to be two different things, right? You know, your diet and nutrition, you may eat like shit one day and not be able to get in the gym and get anything done, while you may eat clean and be like, okay, I can go and work out and do yada, yada, yada. You know, you may do well on certain things at different times, and depending on your preparation, the time of day, what you ate, what you were thinking of at the time, you know, that sort of thing. And you can't ask human beings to be the same. You can't force people to be the same. But back to what I was saying about the socialism system, is it eventually leads to communism, right? Because when you have these deep regulations, I made a comment on Twitter, and I want to read it because I feel like this is the best way to explain, you know, how regulations are a problem. And I am a free market guy. So I says that when people say that they aren't socialists, that they don't really want to seize the means of production, I say that they really just want to control the hiring process, the firing process, the pay scale, the pay rate, the work hours, the work conditions, the area of operations, the executive positions, and the board of directors. Essentially, they don't want to quote unquote seize the means of production. They want to they want to kill it by 1,000 cuts by having these human resources that decide who can get hired and how many of them you have to hire and how long they're supposed to work and how much you must pay them and how many days they have to work in a week, who has to be the CEO or the vice president of such and such, how many of them you can have, how much they get paid, or how, the stock options and all that stuff. All that stuff is decided by the government. Like in California, you have laws now that says there has to be a woman on your board of directors. So if the government is telling you who you have to hire, are you the boss of your company? If the government is telling you you have to have 3 gay people on in your company or whatever, or you're a homophobe, are you in control of your company, or is the government in control of your company? Have they seized the means of production or not? Are they in control of your company? And when you look at regulations, that is what they do. Regulations are a part of the government putting their hands into your company and running it. So when you have all of these regulations, you have essentially what you have is the government controlling all of these corporations. So when you have the government controlling these corporations, and then also when things get bad, the government will find reasons to bail these companies out and then tell the people, we had to bail them out. Like they did with the banks, right? Like they did with the car industry. Instead of just letting the car industry die, and yes, what it would have done would have been economically destructive to specifically my town of Detroit. We bad enough as it is. If the big 3 or General Motors or whatever would have went out of business, it would have hurt. It would have damaged the fuck out of Detroit's economy. But who knows what might have come out of that would have been better. We don't know now because GM was propped up by the government, right? So, and it's the same thing with some of these banks. Like some of these banks that they said were too big to fail, they should have just let them die. And then smaller banks would have came and things would have reset. Like these things aren't meant to be quote unquote too big to fail. The only way somebody can get too big to fail is if the government is helping them. The only way Walmart can get to be the way that it is with government regulation. The only way you can have something as large and as stupidly large as Walmart is with government regulation. Otherwise, it may be a big company in a small town or something like that, or a big company in a small area, but it wouldn't be the massive multinational corporation that it is without the assistance of the government. So when you look at these programs and these different things, to go back to what he was saying, again, I don't believe that The Rock is a communist. That's just absolutely insane. I don't believe Dave Batista is a communist. I don't believe Sami Zayn is a communist. I think that a lot of these people are just very, very, very uneducated. They just don't know. People have a full belief that in the world, you're supposed to be nice. And being nice means you have to sacrifice so that other people can make it. But they don't realize you're already sacrificing so that other people can make it. You're sacrificing for your children. You might be sacrificing for your family. You might be sacrificing for your mom and dad. Like there are some people out there, man, who would love to do different things. Like I know somebody, man, 40 years old, he still stays at home with his parents. Why? Because his mom is sick. So he's sacrificing his social life. He sacrifices, paying for her medicine because she can't work. That's a difficult situation. And now you're asking him, he has to take care of his mom, who is sick, who nursed him when he was a baby. He has to take care of her. But he also is responsible for the moms of other people he never actually met. That's nonsense. Why would you put that much responsibility in the hands of one person? Or even a group of people. It's very difficult for you to ask people to do that. People are already making sacrifices. The way I like to look at the world is stand on one foot, right? And then start stacking plates on each hand. Everybody has plates on their hand and they're standing on one foot, right? You start stacking plates. You start on one hand, you got kids. The other hand, you got parents, right? Your mom want to borrow some money because maybe she can't work or something like that. The kids need shoes. So now you lean in back and forth. Which one did you give money to? You know, you might have a grown up kid and they are in college or something like that, and you know they need help, but then you got to pay rent. Like there's always going to be these little things that's going to go back and forth with you. You know, everybody has them. There's just a different degree. You know, are you going to get your car fixed, or are you going to go out and party, or you going to do something big for your, try to save up for your birthday or whatever it is. Your paychecks and whatever money you got is already delegated. You're stacking plates. Those are your responsibilities, right? Once your responsibilities start to lean one way or the other, you're going to drop these plates, right? That's the world. But we try to blind ourselves to that by saying that, oh, there are people out there who are less fortunate than us. It's like, yeah, that's always the case. That is always the case. But that doesn't mean that it's my problem. I need to be absolved of the problem of dealing with other people's stuff when I don't have my stuff fully figured out yet. And it's easy to just be like, well, we're gonna force Jeff Bezos to do it. It's like, well, Jeff Bezos has more plates than anybody. Like when you think about how many employees Amazon has, what are you gonna do? Just start stacking plates? Because he's rich, obviously. He's still one guy on one foot. He's rich, sure. But he's still one guy on one foot with 2 arms, 2 legs, 2 ears, 2 eyes, 1 mouth. He can only do so much. You know, the only way for you really to fix this problem is not to rely on him and to let other people do it. And that basically means other people have to do it for themselves. You have to give them the opportunity to do it for themselves, though. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section below this video. Like this video, share this video, subscribe to this channel. Thank you guys for listening, and I'll talk to you guys later.
Da, 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 da.